In the spring of 2024, Texas woman Taylor Rogers filed a federal lawsuit against Santa Fe law enforcement following a violent arrest, which had occurred a few years prior. Civil rights attorney Randall Kalinin announced the legal proceedings in May of 2024 and detailed how the woman had been stopped for no reason, thrown to the ground, and hogtied, all the while her face was trapped in a pile of fire ants. The incident occurred on April the 19th of 2021, when Rogers drove away from an attempted police stop after she'd allegedly made an illegal turn in a school parking lot. She claimed to have fled in a panic after Santa Fe ISD Police Chief Ruben Espinoza, one of two officers named in the lawsuit, banged on her car window and pointed a gun at her. When she stopped again in a bus driveway, the woman was wrestled to the ground and restrained. Rogers would report that her face ended up on a bed of fire ants and that the insects started biting her repeatedly. She was unable to swat them away as she was handcuffed and accused the officers of not doing anything to help her, in spite of her pleas and apparent distress. Body cam footage showed 3 cops standing around while an officer applied a hold on Rogers that involved grappling one of her legs and her handcuffed arms. Rogers complained that the hold was cutting off her circulation, but the cop didn't loosen it. Clip showed Rogers shaking her head and shouting in pain, "Ants are getting on my face, please, and how can you all do this? Ants are on my face, please, let go." The scene unfolded while Rogers' son was in her car, and she would later state that she tried to control her screams so as not to scare him, even though she was in excruciating pain. In the arrest's wake, the woman shared photos showing hundreds of bites across her face, neck, chest, and back. Her lawyer would characterize her experience as being akin to torture. Espinoza claimed that the footage shared by Rogers' representatives was misleading, noting that it had been cut without showing officers helping the woman after she'd calmed down. Espinoza also said that although Rogers had been screaming about ants, the officers couldn't see any, and that none were visible in footage of the incident. He maintained that the woman was treated with respect and dignity throughout the arrest. Number 6. Jermaine Vaughn. In May of 2023, former Indianapolis Police Sergeant Eric Huxley pleaded guilty to 1 count of deprivation of rights under color of law for an incident which had occurred on September the 24th of 2021. On that day, the police had responded to a disorderly person complaint at Monument Circle. Huxley, who was on bike patrol, arrived at the scene after 2 other officers had already handcuffed and taken down homeless man Jermaine Vaughn. He was no longer a threat and was actively controlled by the other cops when Huxley was recorded on body cam raising his foot and then forcefully stomping on the man's face. The hit momentarily left Vaughn unreactive as another officer repeatedly told him, "You're done." The body cam clip was followed by a considerable degree of public outrage. An investigation found there was no legitimate law enforcement reason for the strike delivered by Huxley. In October of 2022, a federal grand jury indicted him for violating the civil rights of an arrestee by using excessive force. Following the 44-year-old disgraced cop's guilty plea, he was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Vaughn sued Huxley, the city of Indianapolis, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and the other officers involved in his arrest. He was asking to be financially compensated for intentional battery, unlawful and excessive force, official misconduct, negligence, and other claims. In connection to the arrest, Vaughn had initially been charged with misdemeanor counts of disorderly conduct and resisting law enforcement, but they were ultimately dropped. Number 5. Kathy Austrian's son. A Vermont mother's attempt to teach her teenage son a lesson dramatically backfired on May the 16th of 2021. Kathy Austrian called Burlington police after her foster son had stolen e-cigarettes from a local gas station. She was recorded on body cam telling responding officers that the teen's ADHD medication had recently been increased, adding that he'd started acting erratically and had had a tough week. The unnamed teen, reported as having developmental and intellectual disabilities, was approached by law enforcement as he sat on his bed. Officers told him that if he gave them the stolen products, they'd leave and he wouldn't be charged. Austrian went through some of her son's drawers and found most of the e-cigarettes before trying to get the last one from him. He refused to surrender it, even after he was asked to do so by the police. The officers then forcibly removed it from him before pulling his arms back, pinning him against the bed and handcuffing him. The 230-pound teen screamed and thrashed around in obvious distress before he was taken to the floor and dealt with by paramedics who'd been called to the scene. They placed a spit hood over the teen's head, which resulted in his screaming intensifying. He was then injected with ketamine and eventually carried out on a stretcher, unconscious. Updates from February of 2024 indicated that Austrian was suing the police in Chittenden County Superior Civil Court for using excessive force against her son and for discriminating against him. Adante Pointer, a civil rights attorney in the San Francisco Bay Area, spoke to the media and argued that the officers' initial conversational approach was appropriate, but that the situation took a turn when they decided to get hands-on. Pointer argued that Austrian had called the police expecting them to help in teaching the teen to do the right thing. Highlighting how the call had devolved, Pointer told a media outlet her kid was handcuffed, manhandled, had a spit bag placed over his head, and administered a very powerful and deadly sedative. The lawsuit claimed that the police's actions were particularly reprehensible in the context of the teen's condition, of which they were allegedly aware as they'd visited the home in the past. Number 4. Incident in St. Louis. A police officer from St. Louis, Missouri, became the subject of an internal investigation after he was seen physically controlling a suspect in a cell phone video captured on May the 12th of 2024. The clip, which went viral on social media, showed the unnamed officer holding down a man outside the Marquee Restaurant and Lounge. The cop reportedly worked a second job at the venue and had been asked to remove the patron from the premises. The cop had a cigar in his mouth, and while he used his knee and right arm to immobilize the suspect, he reached out with his free hand to grab a lighter from another officer at the scene. He then proceeded to calmly light the cigar as the suspect struggled beneath his weight before the video cut off. Onlookers were heard off camera saying that they had lighters as well, but a man jokingly told another that he shouldn't reach for it, as the police might mistakenly believe he had a gun. The man, of whom the officers had taken control, was subsequently arrested for trespassing on private property and resisted arrest. The police department announced that they'd begun investigating the circumstances surrounding the incident to determine if any procedural violations had taken place aside from the officers' apparent excess of zeal, which became the focus of many netizens reacting to the incident. Number 3. Tyler Canaris. While he was heading to work on a March morning in 2022, Tyler Canaris was stopped by Paulding County Sheriff's Deputy Michael McMaster. Law enforcement in the Georgian county later reported that they'd received a call about someone breaking into cars, and that 30-year-old Canaris matched the description of the suspect. The ensuing interaction was captured on dashcam video, with McMaster telling Canaris to take his backpack off and put his hands behind his back. The latter asked, "Excuse me? What am I doing wrong?" And while McMaster was handcuffing him, he explained the reason for the detainment. As seen in the footage, Canaris tried to make sense of the situation and told McMaster, "I'm not breaking into anyone's car," while seemingly trying to gesticulate. In a split second, the deputy placed Canaris in a suplex, lifting him in the air and slamming him hard on the pavement. The suspect was heard sickeningly moaning in pain in the moments that followed. Canaris was subsequently reported to have suffered injuries that included fractures to his skull, left clavicle, and right thumb, as well as the rupture of his left eardrum and a traumatic brain injury. It was determined that he wasn't the suspect for whom the police had been searching in connection to the vehicle tampering, but was nevertheless charged with obstruction of a law enforcement officer for allegedly not complying with McMaster's orders. In late February of 2023, the deputy was fired from the sheriff's office around the same time that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had started looking into the use of force associated with Canaris' arrest. Through the surgeries and treatment for his injuries, Canaris had amassed medical bills in excess of $73,000. He sued McMaster and Paulding County Sheriff Gary Cullidge, seeking compensation for his unlawful arrest and seizure in violation of his rights. Cullidge was accused of not taking any corrective action to address the issues with McMaster, as the latter was fired nearly a year after the incident. Today's topic was inspired by Bettina Mitchell 3535. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Randall Worcester. On the morning of August the 21st of 2022, a convenience store clerk in Alma, Arkansas, called local police to report that a man had spat on him and threatened to cut his face up. The suspect in question, 27-year-old Randall Worcester, had repeatedly reacted in such a manner after being told by the clerk that he couldn't sit on the curb outside the store. Crawford County deputies Levi White and Zach King, joined by Mulberry police officer Thel Riddle, approached Worcester outside of a Country Express convenience store in Mulberry, roughly 11 miles east from the scene of the initial incident. As per subsequent reports on the ensuing interaction, Worcester admitted to having weapons on him and surrendered a pocket knife. When the cops attempted to take Worcester into custody, a physical altercation ensued. A bystander captured a 34-second video of the arrest, which went viral in the aftermath, gaining millions of views across multiple social media platforms. It showed Worcester held on the ground by the 3 officers and unable to defend himself. King repeatedly and forcefully kneed Worcester in the body roughly at the same time that White relentlessly punched him in the face. The latter also picked up Worcester by the head and slammed him into the pavement. The cops shouted at the witness recording the arrest upon realizing they were being filmed. Worcester suffered head injuries and was treated at a hospital prior to being taken to Crawford County Jail on a plethora of charges that included resisting arrest, assault, battery, and terroristic threatening. As the video of the beating gained traction online, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson held a press conference and described the officers' actions as reprehensible in conduct and not consistent with the training they received. 2 versions of events emerged in the arrest's wake. A lawyer for White claimed that his client was unprovokedly body slammed head first into the concrete by Worcester, who then continued to resist arrest, prompting the police's reaction. A federal lawsuit filed against the officers by Worcester on April the 29th stated that White had aggressively moved to restrain him without stating a reason for doing so, and that at no point had Worcester been read his Miranda rights. The lawsuit also underlined that the officers, none of whom wore body cams, hadn't attempted to subdue Worcester by other means, such as the use of a taser or pepper spray before they started striking him. The U.S. Department of Justice, assisted by the FBI, launched a civil rights investigation into the incident. In January of 2023, White and King were arrested and charged with excessive force and civil rights violations, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. By April the 19th of 2024, White pleaded guilty to a felony count of deprivation of rights under color of law, while King entered a plea of guilty to 1 misdemeanor count of deprivation of rights under color of law. Their sentencing hearings were to be held at a later date. Around the time that Worcester's arrest made the news, White was accused of brutality in at least 2 other incidents that had taken place that summer. 27-year-old Teddy Wallace claimed that White had savagely beaten him after he'd responded to a domestic disturbance call. Wallace reported that he'd suffered extensive bruises and abrasions, adding that his head was split open after the officer had used a stun gun on him multiple times and hit him with a baton. 49-year-old Tammy Nelson recounted that she was only wearing a nightgown when White arrested her for a civil matter related to an easement early on the morning of August the 14th of 2022. She noted that the officer immediately became aggressive, grabbing her arm and slamming her to the ground, even though she wasn't resisting arrest. Through tears, Nelson told a media outlet that she felt humiliated when her nightgown rose up, exposing her lower half, while White was restraining her on the ground. She said he'd need me right next to my private area, adding that the violent incident had left her with bruises and swelling all over her body and that White had never told her the reason for her detainment. She reportedly filed official complaints with the sheriff's office, but nothing was done. If this wasn't brutal enough for you, just remember that it can always get much worse. Find out exactly what we mean after number 1 in 7 women who raised all hell. Number 1. Richard Williams. On May the 10th of 2023, a call to North Wales Police was placed from an address in Pencyflog, Porthmadog, regarding a disturbance. 42-year-old law enforcement officer Richard Williams was seen on cell phone video aggressively controlling a suspect in the garden of the property. He was assisted by an unnamed female colleague. In a 13-second bystander-recorded clip that subsequently went viral, Williams was recorded placing Stephen Clark in a stranglehold and forcefully cranking on his neck with his forearm. The officer then struck Clark at least 9 times in the face with a closed fist. Shouts of "Stop resisting!" from Williams accompanied the suspect's pain-induced screams. The violent arrest prompted the woman recording it to gasp in horror and cry out, "Oh my God!" A second clip lasting several seconds showed the dazed, bloodied and barefoot suspect being led to a police vehicle. Once Clark was in the car, Williams used incapacitant spray on him. As the police drove him to the station, Clark became unwell and had to be given first aid prior to being taken to the hospital. Updates from January of 2024 indicated that Williams had been suspended from his duties after being charged with assault, occasioning actual bodily harm and non-fatal strangulation. He pleaded not guilty to both at Llandudno Magistrates Court, with his trial set for a later date. On the afternoon of June the 27th of 2023, officers from the Houston Police Department responded to reports of a shooting in the 7600 block of Hammerly Boulevard. They went to the apartment of 29-year-old L'Oreal Folk, whose daughter answered the door and said that her mother was sleeping on the couch. Officers pulled back a green blanket that was covering the woman and found that she'd been fatally shot in the head with a 9mm gun. Her daughter told officers that a man and 25-year-old Lakiri Tolliver had been at the home when she'd gone to bed the night before. The daughter had fallen asleep in her mother's room and was woken up the following morning by Tolliver, who told her to go to her room. Folk's apartment cameras didn't catch the shooting, but showed the events leading up to it. Tolliver was seen picking up Folk's cell phone while the latter was sleeping and scrolling through it at around 10:30 a.m. Within minutes, a gunshot rang out and a bullet casing was heard hitting the floor. She and the man who'd remained at the apartment overnight then made several trips in and out of the home while carrying various items, including Folk's Gucci and Louis Vuitton bags. The duo then fled, leaving Folk's daughter alone in the apartment with the victim's body. Tolliver later messaged friends and the victim's family from Folk's phone, claiming that the man who'd slept at the apartment, only identified as Twin, had been responsible for her murder. Tolliver returned to Folk's home in the aftermath on July the 11th, broke a window and went inside. She filled a basket with so many items that she had to drag it to the parking lot. Tolliver was arrested for tampering with evidence and burglary of a habitation on July the 14th. She initially denied having been present at the home on the night of the murder, but changed her story when confronted with the video evidence. Tolliver tried claiming that her male companion had shot Folk, but video from the apartment indicated he'd slept throughout the ordeal. Detectives concluded that Tolliver had executed Folk because she thought the victim was flirting with her boyfriend. She was already in custody on September the 12th when murder charges were officially filed against her. Number 6. Erin Harris and Danielle Peterciello. Las Vegas law enforcement was called to the Encore at the Wynn Hotel on July the 9th of 2023, following a four-way brawl at the center of which were Erin Harris and OnlyFans model Danielle Peterciello. 42-year-old Harris was a senior executive at Lobos 1707, a spirits brand co-launched by NBA superstar LeBron James. She had previously worked as a senior vice president for rapper Diddy Combs Enterprises. About 4 months prior to the video-recorded melee, she learned that her 51-year-old husband, Mike, the CEO of a luxury athletic apparel company, had been cheating on her with Peterciello. Harris confronted the model on social media and she reportedly admitted the affair, telling her, "If it's not going to be me, it's going to be someone else." On July the 9th, 24-year-old Peterciello and her friend Amanda Collado, aged 29, were at a pool party at the Encore and had gone to the casino floor to use the bathroom. Harris was in Las Vegas to promote Lobos 1707 during the NBA Summer League event and was staying at the hotel. She and an unnamed friend then came across Peterciello and Collado. Harris recognized the former and a fight ensued. 2 short clips of the altercation subsequently went viral, and the first showed Harris, who was wearing a cream-colored sweatsuit, being held back by a blue-shirted man as Puerta Cielo and her friend grappled on the casino floor. During the brawl, the OnlyFans model's miniskirt was hiked up, exposing her thong-clad bottom. Harris then slipped past the man who'd been blocking her, struck Collado in the face, and then focused her attention on Puerta Cielo, who was still on the ground from tussling with her friend. The blue-shirted man then broke up the brawl, pushing Harris and her friend towards a wall. As Puerta Cielo got up and tried to throw a pink slipper at them, a second clip showed the same man and the security guard trying to separate the women after Puerta Cielo had pushed Harris into a mobility scooter. The clip ended with the guard mounting Puerta Cielo and restraining her. It wasn't clear if the brawling women faced any charges. The OnlyFans model spoke to a media outlet and commented on her relationship with Harris's husband in the fight's aftermath, saying, "He just takes care of me." Number 5. Małgorzata Zwierzyńska and Nicola Alokin. In the fall of 2023, two women fought each other in an MMA cage during an event in Poland held by the promotion Clout MMA. The duo fought over a man, but under entirely different circumstances than the typical romantic rivalry. 50-year-old Małgorzata Zwierzyńska, who also went by Gosia Magical, had earned attention online by making videos with her streamer son, Daniel. Zwierzyńska stunned those familiar with her content upon announcing that she was planning to square off against Daniel's ex-girlfriend, 19-year-old Nicola Alokin. Clout MMA, a promotion known for staging outlandish bouts, put together the fight in October of 2023. The event was reportedly unsanctioned by the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, the global governing body for amateur mixed martial arts. Netizens had voiced their favorite in the lead-up, and the majority thought that Alokin would pummel her opponent. Nevertheless, Zwierzyńska, an MMA novice, more than held her own against the much younger influencer. She knocked her down in the first round before ending the bout via TKO in the second round. Among the commenters reacting to the result on social media, one quipped, "Thank God slippers weren't allowed, otherwise it would have been a bloodbath," while another wrote, "Don't ever mess with a mother after you break her child's heart." Number 4. Linda Lee Yancey. On October the 19th of 2016, law enforcement in Austin, Texas responded to reports of an assault at a residence located near the 6000 block of Shore Drive. The attacker was identified as Linda Lee Yancey, who was married to but separated from a man that the victim was dating at the time. Yancey reportedly came into the latter's house and brandished a 4-inch black knife, demanding that the unnamed woman get out. The victim fled into her 2-year-old son's bedroom, at which point Yancey went after her, yelling, "I will stab you and cut you." She forced the victim to the ground and repeatedly thrust the blade towards her body in a stabbing motion, coming within inches of actually puncturing her. The victim begged Yancey to leave prior to calling 911. The jealous spouse was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and jailed on a $30,000 bond. Number 3. Incident in China. A clip went viral on social media in China in mid-July of 2016 after two women were recorded playing tug of war with a shared love interest. In the 25-second video, the rivals were each pulling on the man's arms as he knelt between them next to a dog, likely belonging to one of them. One of the women, who wore a black tracksuit, was heard saying, "Why don't you leave with me?" while the other, who had on a blue jacket, pulled the man in her direction. The woman in black then slapped the man, and her rival, angered by his lack of reaction, decided to slap the man as well. The two women then proceeded to alternatively slap their unreactive love interest several more times before the video cut off. One of the commenters reacting to the viral clip jokingly suggested they saw the man in half, so they each got a piece, while another seemed more concerned about the pet in the video, writing, "This is so awkward for the dog. Have you thought about how it must be feeling?" Number 2. Enyerbi Jose Briceno Gonzalez. 21-year-old Enyerbi Jose Briceno Gonzalez was drinking with several friends, including his girlfriend, in the parking lot of an apartment building in San Antonio, Texas, on June the 14th of 2023. At some point during the evening, another group turned up, joined by Gonzalez's wife, whose identity wasn't revealed, and Brian Josette Rivero Montilla. Gonzalez's wife was reported to have hit his mistress, and a melee broke out between the two groups, during the course of which Rivero Montilla left to retrieve his gun. The man returned, walked up to Gonzalez and fired a shot at his feet before pistol whipping him. He then fired a second shot into Gonzalez's body prior to driving away. 4 of the people who were at the scene took Gonzalez to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. It would subsequently emerge that Rivero Montillo was also involved with one of the brawling women, although it remained unclear whether it was Gonzalez's wife or his mistress. 28-year-old Rivero Montillo was arrested for murder in late August. Leading up to the deadly shooting, he'd been arrested for smuggling near the US-Mexico border and was supposed to be wearing an ankle monitor, but the authorities believed he'd cut it off. As of updates on the matter, Rivero Montilla was booked on a $150,000 bond with a trial date set for the late fall of 2023. Number 1. Incident in Peru. In January of 2016, a bus carrying 52 passengers careered off-road in the province of Chanchamayo in central Peru. The vehicle had been traveling from Huancayo to Pichanaki when the driver lost control. The coach, operated by Ghoul Express, crashed into a ravine, resulting in the death of 17 people and more than 30 passengers suffering injuries. Following its initial circuit in the news, the incident would receive further media coverage due to an altercation that occurred outside the hospital, where one of the accident victims was receiving treatment. The unidentified man in question was visited simultaneously by his wife and his mistress. A fight broke out when the two women met face to face. A video, which was subsequently picked up by local and international media outlets, showed the pair punching and grappling each other. A third woman, who was reportedly related to one of the combatants, also got involved, and the three-way melee progressed to them holding each other by the hair. A fourth woman, who was carrying a small child, briefly got involved before several male bystanders broke up the fight. Thanks for watching. For a month, would you rather live in the most crime-ridden city in the world or be alone on a remote island with only the bare minimum required for survival? Let us know in the comment section below.